All right, we are live at Breathe Music Studios, Breathe Music Live Sessions. Lucie, Pierro.
Justin Martin.
We are here tonight to talk about the video we did, If I Ain't Got You, by Alicia Keys. We did a cover, an acoustic cover with guitar.
People want it all, but I don't want nothing at all. If it ain't you, baby, if I ain't got you, baby.
We already did a little segment where we talked a bit about why we chose the song. We're going to get a little more in depth about that as far as the meaning behind the song and the musicality behind the song. And we're also going to go farther into the musical theory of the song and the vocal techniques that are used for a song like this and the challenges you'll face and what you'll need to do to tackle a song like this. And this is really a great and brilliant song, even if it's not necessarily your style, to really push your boundaries, because the music theory behind it, the chords that she uses, and the way the song is structured is absolutely brilliant.
I think that's how you learn. Like, you have to push the boundary, you have to go outside of your comfort zone. And learning a new song that's the path to do that as a musician. A lot of my students will come in and they're working on a song for months at a time, and it gets stale and they don't feel curious about it or creative about it, and they're really not being challenged by it anymore. So like Justin said, if it's not your lane, if you're not into neo soul or R&B, it's still a beautiful, brilliant song. The first thing we want to talk about is choosing the song. Like, why would you pick a song? What criteria go into deciding that you're going to take on a song and learn it? Obviously, interest, curiosity, something that you love. You have to pick a song that you love because you're going to play it how many times?
So many times.
A lot of times. You better play it a lot of times if you want it to be good. So, obviously something that draws you to the song, but, also the musicality and something that like lights you up inside when you listen to it. But when you look at the song from where it came from, so it was published back in 2003. So the song was published back in 2003. It was on the Diary of Alicia Keys, her second album. She just put out a video a few weeks ago, actually, about how voraciously she had to write this whole album. She was touring, she was traveling and performing by day and writing and recording by night, like all over the world. She had her studio on her tour bus, and it was a really stressful time for her. She was under a lot of pressure to produce like a second great album, and how many artists you read about that's one of their biggest struggles is always finding like that wonderful song after you've just put out an album of like your best work. So prior to her writing this song, the plane that Aaliyah was on had gone down, and so she was really moved by that tragedy that happened, and she wrote If I Ain't Got You really as kind of to honor her legacy, and to really just look at like the finite things in the world, the things that we measure success by and happiness by, that they really don't matter. So some people think that the physical things define what's within, and she just challenges that, and it's a beautiful, beautiful love song. Something that drew me to this song is that message. It's that message of like that one person, that it doesn't matter what you have together. It's the love that you build and the experiences that you have together that make it all worth it. And that's kind of the message that drew me to the song. But I think it's important when you're choosing a song to perform. Obviously, you want to learn about the writer, what they were doing, why they wrote the song. But then you need to interpret it for yourself. Like, what does it mean to you? Why is it important? Why is it worth telling this story? And that's what I'm about in vocal performance. It's about the story. It's not about vocal perfection and doing all of the perfect riffs and the style that she performs in. It's about taking the song and making it your own and building your own expression of that song. So for me, at the time that I heard this song and was learning, I was in college, I was doing a lot of vocal work and training. It just really spoke to me. It was so real and just really authentic. So that was the reason why I chose the song.
Yeah.
Why did you choose to play this song? I remember when we were like, what about this song? And we were both really fired up about it.
So full disclosure, I was really busy, and it was a song I had done before, and I was hoping that the learning curve to relearn the song wasn't going to take that much time, and that I'd be a little more familiar with it. But also, it was truly because I think that it's a very well-written song from a musical standpoint. It's very into the chord voicings she uses are just so interesting, and some of my favorite voicings to use. And for that reason, I was like, okay, yeah, this is a good song to do, and okay, I think we could have some fun with it. And I don't think at the time I had seen too many versions or was aware of many versions where it was interpreted mainly on acoustic guitar and vocal.
Right.
So I thought that would be an interesting take and a challenge, because trying to do a song that is a piano-based song like that has a lot of those interesting voicings, and the fact that her time signature is 3/4, it's not a 4/4 time song. And
it's like the love timing, that 3/4
even though
waltz.
even though it's 3/4, it's more of it's got more of like a 6/8 waltzy type of feel to it, and it swings. It's not perfectly in time, They maybe have used a click track in there, but one of the things that's great about R&B players and drummers is they can drag the time a little bit, and just gives it that feel.
Yeah.
And I thought that was really interesting about the song.
Yeah.
And one thing I'd like to say, when you talked about her writing the album and all the pressure she was under for the follow-up album, I think this relates not only to music but several other things. When it goes from something that you love doing to a regimen and a job and a profession and expectations, it can be a lot, and you have to learn how to keep that joy for what it is you originally started doing because you loved it. When it's you still love doing it, but you're under a timeline. You have to learn these songs by this time to perform, or if it's with your job.
It's an enormous amount of pressure, like forced creativity.
Yeah.
And Rick Rubin talks about that a lot. He says, you're not doing it, you're not creating it for the listener. You have to create it for yourself, or it can't truly be art. And I think there's so much truth in that, and these artists, they have so many ideas, and they've been writing, they're writing hundreds of songs, but like they have to create the song. And I think, it really shows the incredible artist that she is, that she was able to write all of that beautiful music. Like that whole album is pretty incredible.
Yeah, just a lot of her work is, but that album definitely is amazing. So.
And just her style too, like she's a neo-soul artist, so although, R&B is like her category of music, neo-soul really came out of a lot of hip-hop influence, a lot of, the rock and roll that was happening at the time. She grew up in a very like urban environment, and, was exposed to like so much music, a lot of jazz, and it's just kind of a beautiful combination of styles of music that just really give like that feel to it. And to recreate that acoustically with a guitar was kind of...
It was fun. It was a challenge, and it was
crazy.
Fun.
Yeah.
And one of the things that people may not realize when they hear us perform it is that that's a very difficult song to do for a vocalist in just a single instrument, because of the way the timing is and the pauses and those little slides in and out from, they go out of key and slide in kind of in an off time. So there's a lot of communication that has to happen between the instrumentalist and the vocalist that people may not notice to keep the song flowing like we're doing, like we meant to do it.
Like there's a lot of room for error when you've got like that loose feel. There's a lot more space to mess it up.
There's a lot. and that brings up an interesting point. So our video that we put out for this one, it was done in one take, meaning that the final take that we did was one time all the way through.
The final.
Because we had to do it several times to get it right, and that shows you that Lucie and I have both been performing for a really long time, and we're used to learning songs, having to learn to click and do this. And getting in front of a camera and doing it is a little bit different because it's something we're not necessarily used to. And also we hadn't really had a chance to play together for that long yet. We were still kind of learning to play with each other.
Yeah.
And so we had to do several takes all the way through, but finally we got it.
Yeah, but it was like one take, no edits, no cuts, no auto-tune. You know, and it's not perfect. I listen to it now and I know I could go back and do it so much better with a lot more accuracy in some ways. But then there's also some magic in that too. And I think it's just real. And I take that any day over the perfect recording.
And I still think it's funny when I go back and look at it because we kept making mistakes because I kept trying to get in the song and feel it. And then the take you see, I have no expression on my face because I kept messing up every time I'd...
You were meditating the whole time.
Every time my concentration would go away from exactly what my hands were doing, I would lose it. So that last one, I'm like, trying to get through it.
Yeah, it's something about like the really quiet room with just the cameras rolling. It's so different than a live performance. Like, I mean, you're feeding so much off of people who are watching or not watching or the noise, but it is really different. She has a huge belt. So the belt is something that all women want. We all want a strong belt. And, you know, our vocal registers vary slightly, but most females generally have like a change in their register from usually around like a B or a C, like a C5, which is like the middle of the piano. You know, and that stretches beyond. So what singers will normally be trained to do is to learn how to mix their registers with their falsetto and their belt together. And when you learn to blend that mix really well, depending on dynamics and placement and some other things, and a lot of control of your voice, you can really kind of harness the song by using your mix or your belt and kind of knowing like where to come in and out of those different registers and those different approaches. So Alicia Keys has a really strong belt. She is, at the time that she performed this song, she belts the entire thing. Belting puts a lot of strain on your voice. It doesn't matter how much breath control you use. Like, naturally, we're not supposed to belt all the time. Our voice will tire out and will burn out. So for me, I've always sung this song in a mix, and then I have a few places where I bring in my belt to really push like the emotional thread of the song. So like at the end, that last chorus, I use a mix and I go into my belt and I really just use like the placement like really high up in my jaw. So when you train in vocals, you really learn like where all of the vowels are placed and where you can really apply like the resonance of your voice into the placement of your face, your throat, your chest, you know, your nasal. So for this song, it's a lot of like chest singing and then kind of that mix in like the back of the face. So that's really the first thing, you know, when you first approach learning a song, you know, you need to kind of choreograph how you're going to approach each chord progression and each part of the melody that you're going to sing. Usually it's good to start with the hardest part of the song, like the highest part of the song, and really work that out first and then kind of work backwards. So with this song, if you're really building your belt and you really want to strengthen it, it's a good song to learn. With it being R&B, with having like a real swing to it, you know, if you're a singer that struggles with pitch control, it's not the best song for you to choose because it's really easy to swing right off, be a little flat, a little sharp, and you don't want to be there at all. And you don't want to use auto-tune, so.
No auto-tune, kids. No auto-tune. There's no shortcut. No shortcut.
Yeah. So definitely calls for the technique of learning to use a really supported belt. So by supported, I mean with a lot of breath control. So when you think about breath control, it's not like you take a huge breath. It's learning how to apply pressure to the amount of breath that you have and really learning to trust that kind of back and forth, and where you're supposed to breathe. Like that's something you have to build in. Like where can I have a rest? Where can I rest and like stop singing and kind of reset all of the coordination required to sing? And this song really rolls along, so there's not a lot of space in between the verse and the chorus to kind of stop and reset. So it does require a lot of endurance. This is not a song that I get up in the morning and practice with. It's a song that I would sing last in the day when you're really warmed up. And there are certain songs where like you cannot sing them 16 times. You know, you have to work into it. So if you work on the really critical parts, the most difficult parts, in isolated from the rest of the song, you're going to get more mileage that way.
Well, you talked about taking breaths and not having a lot of space, and something that I learned quickly when I started taking lessons with you is that you almost have to think of the breaths in the terms of another instrument you're playing that has to be in time with the rest of the song, and or at least that's how I'm viewing it, because I realized quickly that if you're half a beat off trying to fit that breath in, you're out of gas by the time you have to hit the next or come in, or
it's like you're mapping it. So like, for example, in that line, some people think that the physical things, so after the word think, you don't really have to sustain that word. Some people think that the physical, you could cut that word off. Some people think that the physical things, you could get a really good breath there if you needed to, you know, to prepare you for the next part. So, you know, memorizing the words, knowing exactly where the song is going to go is critical, because you need to know how much effort you need to apply for each piece, for each word. You know, Alicia Keys has crazy stamina. She has a crazy voice box. Like, she just has a lot of power. You know, she's always playing. She's sitting when she's singing, which for some of us, it's more difficult than standing. And she's even talked about that. Like, there's certain songs that she just can't sing right if she's not sitting at the piano, where she's tried to get up in the studio and like stand and sing and it doesn't sound right. So, you know, there's that component too. And it's like learning, you know, where your strengths are, and, you know, are you best sitting and singing or standing? So yeah, it's kind of, it's mapping out where you're applying your effort. And for me, it's all about like effort management, you know, like where can you kind of settle back and save a little energy so that you have more for the moments that it really counts. So
and that's also important for the dynamics of the song, the impact of the song. So picking and choosing your spots for maximum impact is really important. And that's kind of what was great about breaking it down to just the acoustic and the solo voice, is that we could have some quiet parts, and we could have some bigger parts. And
you hear it all.
Yeah,
and it's acoustic.
And it just really, it gives it a life, because now you're soft, you're loud, you're intense, you're tender, and it really shapes it in a little bit different way.
Yeah.
Which is not hard with that song, because it already is a very emotional one.
Yeah. The words guide you through that, and that's how it should be. The story and the words should guide you through what you're like those dynamics. And all, you know, also, which we'll talk about the playing, because that also plays a role. But from a vocal standpoint, when you're approaching a song, it's like, okay, well, what are you saying? Where do you need to apply more effort, and where are the dynamics really important? Is it, you know, it's that critical line of the song that the person has been dying to get out. That's the hardest thing to say. You know, that requires your biggest belt that you have in you, you know, and you get to make those choices.
Yeah. And as an instrumentalist, I think it's important to emphasize that too, because you know I do a lot of acoustic duo shows, and sometimes you've got to do things that really are just going to make it interesting and get people drawn in, especially when they start to lose interest. And since we don't have an elaborate light show when we play, you know, I always at concerts I have this theory that people are no better than fish, and this theory is based on, at some point about midway through every concert you go through, people are going to start losing attention. Maybe there's a couple slower songs and they're no longer watching and cheering. They're like, hey, yeah, so last week I was down over here having dinner. And so what do? They hit every light in the house. And as soon as they do that, the people that are over there just not distracted are like, oh, They don't know why. Yeah, there's flashing lights. You know.
Flashing lights.
But so anyways, you have to be able. You know, the singer's not the only one who's responsible for
Yes.
setting the dynamics and the mood and the tension and any of those things.
Mm-hmm.
So I always try to make a really conscious effort to lead the song in a way by how I'm playing.
Mm-hmm.
And sometimes that could mean when I bring it down a little bit, I also have a slight drag in tempo to pull a certain feel and signal.
Okay.
Or, you know, just how much harder I'm playing or the pattern I'm playing, and switching between the pick and fingers. Just something to make to help lead the song a little bit and not put it all on the vocalist to just wow everybody.
Yeah.
And give them and try to give a good platform and support the person who's putting it all out there. You know?
So what kind of approach did you use for this song as far as dynamics and like artistic presence?
I kept bouncing back and forth between using a pick or using my fingers.
Okay.
And I ended up settling on a pick just because I just thought it sounded a little crisper. So one of the things she does in there that I'll show you real quick is that coming in and out of the verses and even the chorus, she goes a half step up out of key and brings it back in. So the verse, the first technical chord or the structure for it is, because it's in the key of G, is this G major 7th. But when it comes back in, she goes a half step up to the G sharp major 7th and slides it down. And then
some people live.
And then there's the part in the chorus where the C major 7th is going to be in key, but the second half of it, when it comes back, because it comes around twice, when it comes back, it goes up a half step to the D sharp.
Okay.
And it just gives you that, so that helps you slide your vocal in and out, but that's an important thing to focus on. So as I was playing it, I would pull it back and almost give a little bit of pause and a little bit of space, so then it really hits when it's
yeah,
you know,
you just let it ring for a little extra moment.
Some people need 3 dozen roses, and that's the only way to prove you love them. Listen.
So what other things did you find interesting about this song in particular as a guitarist?
Well, I mentioned that she uses a lot. The song uses a lot of my favorite chord voicings.
Okay.
So instead of just going with the standard, you know, G major chord, she uses a 7th, and then she uses an A minor 7th, and she uses I think it goes to a D6 or a D9. So there's just little inversions of chords, little changes and augmentations of chords that throw in a note here and there that just color it in a way that is just really beautiful. And then the fact that she uses just those little tricks like I just talked about to go out of key for just a second and then brings it right back in. That's just fun.
Yeah.
You know, and I mean, and that's kind of an R&B and soul trick.
Yeah, it's like the vibe of it. It's the color, it's the feeling. It doesn't need like a reason.
Yeah. I mean, and it fits and sounds good, but you know, as a lot of jazz musicians and a lot of musicians over the years have said, you know, you're only a half step away from the right note at any given moment. Right or the wrong note. So
I've never heard that one.
it doesn't matter how long, you know, you don't have to stay on it forever. So if you hit a note that didn't sound good, so it matters where it resolves.
It needs to resolve.
So yeah, it's just got, you know, but when it does, it's like, oh yes,
Yeah.
you know.
Mm-hmm.
So, yeah, so that was kind of some of the you know, I'm not a fan of diminished chords, and you know, she throws a little diminished trick in there instead of doing it when she does the half step down from the G sharp major 7. Well, the second half of the verse, because it starts off, she goes to the G major 7th, then she goes to an E minor. Well, the second time around, she goes to the G major 7th again, but then goes to this G sharp diminished 7th.
So what point of the song is that?
So you would go in.
Some people live for the fortune. Some people live just for the fame. Some people live for the power. Ah, yeah. Some people live just to play the game. And the word for the power.
Yeah,
and
it's just got that, because you know the notes that are in there. I mean, you're hitting a pitch that's in this dissonant sounding.
Yeah.
Yeah,
And that's like what this whole thing is about. It's like it's not about the power, and it's like right on that word.
So that's just a lot of fun when
Yeah.
you mix those things in, and it sounds so much more interesting, you know.
Yeah. Why does it fire me up so much? Like, it's just so cool. And when you talk about like resolving, when you hear a song and you're like, you have to listen to it until it resolves, or you can't move away from it. It's like, no, wait, you got to end it, you know.
Well, I think vocally the trick that I hear most often and I recognize most often from vocalists is a lot of times when you're going up to a big long note, I hear vocals, they'll go up and they're a little bit flat, and they but it's on purpose. Yeah, and they do a slide up and they do a little bit of vibrato maybe to get up in there. Yeah. That's cool. That's
resistance. And to be honest, I used to take a lot of advantage of that. And looking back on hearing my records and watching videos, I'm like, oh, Lulu, it was too soon. You know, you didn't have the control. You have to get the precision first. And then, and then get into the sliding and the riffing. You know, a lot of singers are like, I want to riff, and I want to riff like Christina Aguilera. It's like, but you have to sing like the Star Spangled Banner perfectly first, like she did. Like and there's no hard, fast rule, but it's really easy to get sloppy because you don't have a piece of wood with a string that's like, this is the G. You have to train your body to know, like, this is the G, and it's not G sharp, and it's not A flat. It's not. You have to be really careful with that. And it's easy to take advantage of because it feels so good because you're creating like that rub, and sometimes it can get you into muddy water.
Oh, I know that.
Be careful. I've even heard it on our video. I'm like, ooh, Lulu. Like, you're like, you gotta get there. And it's, with the timing of it too. The timing is so important, especially on an acoustic version. Our tempo definitely changes throughout, but our tempo has to be in sync. So if you're kind of like leading into the notes and fading out of the notes, you start to get into it
can get messy, so there's got to be
you don't want it to be sloppy.
And I think doing so many takes and getting it wrong so many times that night that by then we started to get a feel for the because you could hear my tendencies each time we went through, and then it makes it a little easier. So
it's really important.
We're talking about some of the slides and stuff. Since I am new to trying to do anything vocals, which you really haven't heard yet, and we're gonna get there one day. I promise you.
We will.
She's not gonna let me get away with not doing it. I love piano. I started off on piano. Can't really play anymore. I was like really young when I took piano lessons. But for me, one of the things I love about guitar is its vocal quality, and that's the ability to do a lot of things that you're doing, sliding in and out of a note. It's just very expressive.
Yes.
And you can take your time with it. It doesn't have to be. And you can just really have fun with playing the notes, and and sliding in and out of things. And I love doing
That's fun.
bends and double note bends and getting them into to once they start to you get unison and stuff. So cool. But,
Yeah, like the line in "If I Ain't Got You," someone at all,
I
and
love
she's
that.
just she does it so beautifully.
If I ain't got you, so want it all, but I don't want nothing at all. If it ain't you, baby, if I ain't got you, baby, some people want tamarind.
So as far as like diction and articulation goes, it's relatively easy because there's a lot of big open vowels, and the vowels are where we emote. The vowels are where we really tag all of our like support and technique to the word. It's not like it's not when you say got, it's not the g, it's the ah of the word got that you're expressing. So there's a lot of big open A's and ahs. There's some like really wide diphthongs. So in that sense, it's easy to place the notes. If I ain't got you. So there's a lot of like variety in there. So you really can kind of showcase like your vibrato, and the melody is really strong throughout. So it's really important to know the song really well, because it's not an easy melody. It's repetitive, but it's not as straightforward as some other like pop tunes that you would hear on the radio and say, oh, I'd like to sing that song, So yeah, the big open vowels, that's, you want to get really strong on your ahs, your a's, your oohs, your ohs, and really get some good control and be able to sustain those vowels with good breath control to sing a song like this.
Yeah.
And if you want to build, if you want to build your vocal endurance, if you want to build your belt, if you want to really practice a strong mix, like this is a great song to learn.
Because it's going to teach you some very interesting chords that are variations of your basic major and minor chords that add different notes in there to different elements in there. Like when you hear somebody say a major or minor seventh chord, what that is you're counting up and you're adding another note in there that's the seventh degree.
Okay.
And so you're just adding this extra little flavor in there that adds, sometimes a little tension or a little.
It's like a richness.
Yeah, sometimes richness, or it colors it. It's just a way to color your basic chord in the scale. In this song, you use obviously the root with the G major seventh.
Okay.
You've got a C major seventh in there, which this is actually this. You could do a G major seventh this way up here. And this is one of my favorite voicings. I do really like this one too. But this just sounds so good. And there's so many other cool songs that use these. And then the minor seventh. And
So by voicings, do you mean inversions? Or is that different in guitar? Like I'm more piano based.
An inversion is different. So an inversion would be so any chord that you're playing, if it was just a basic G chord, it would be a different way to play that G chord, and the notes maybe not in the order of, may not be the G may not be the first note, but you can still do it like here's a little different, or
Play it in a different order.
Yeah. And then or the full chord. So an inversion is just a different sequence, but it's the same notes.
Right. Okay.
But this song is a great use of the G major scale, or just follows the major scale pattern really good, and adds a lot of interesting flavor. And then like we talked about earlier, once you start adding the various slides in and out, and there's some cool things that are done, like it's not quite chromatic, but it's almost chromatic.
Okay.
When it gets into that sort of pre-chorus, you go from the G to the A to the B, back to the A, and then G to the A, to the B, and then you add that C, B, A, and that's just, God, that's just so fun.
Yeah.
You know?
Yeah.
So it really makes
It rocks and it rolls.
Oh yeah, and I love that swing of that part. That's when it gets to that pre-chorus.
Yeah.
You know, you can get that little lazy thing to it. You know?
Yeah.
So yeah, it's just whether or not it's your style of music or you particularly like the song or not. It's good to step outside of what you normally do and what your normal genres are from time to time to expand what your knowledge is, and this will give you so many different color variations that it might spark some sort of creativity for you down the line. And it's also a good lesson in knowing that you're going to get into situations if you decide you're going to join a band or you're going to play out, you know, semi-professionally, professionally. You're not always going to have the luxury of playing only the music that you like. So, yeah, there are other members of the band.
Oh, it's like a band?
Yeah. You know, if you end up being a paid side person, you know, side man, you know, you pretty much have no say, but you're going to take the paycheck, so you better learn to love it. And so it's helpful in that sense too, that because then you can take a song that you may not particularly love, but I always try to find a way to play it in a way or do something in it that makes me kind of like it.
Yeah.
And it takes
it's a good
something out
survival
of it.
technique.
Yeah. Yeah. So.
Yeah.
So
good stuff.
it just gives you some more creative tools and some more colors on your palette to paint with.
Exactly. Beautifully said. We have more videos coming for more tunes. If you have a song you'd like us to break down, send it our way. Subscribe to our channel.
Yes.
And like us.
And like us. And yeah, I hope you found this informative, and it just sparks a little bit more interest in music in general and various forms of music, and you know, pushes you to maybe try something new and different and grow as a musician.
What he said.
Thanks for joining us.
Thanks for joining us.